Okay, so let's go through the English language for something a little bit different for you guys in terms of like robotic language and how we're going about in the future. Now, many of you won't think about this because you're like, we're in an Americanized country. By the way, New Zealand, Australia, the US, obviously, and was it Europe? Different parts of Europe, you know, the Americanized culture, the Hollywoodized culture, the fashionable is fashionable. If I dress to impress, etc., I get all the hot women and the champagne, and the women get the hot guys and the best blah, 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 all of that stuff. Americanized culture, right? But let's talk about this in terms of the future, and let's talk about the languages we'll actually use. So some of you guys won't click on this because it's a difficult thing to actually understand, but English is not the only language that we speak. Okay, sounds like common sense, right? But hear me out. Robotic language is very different. The coding, etc., that works on a certain system or ChatGPT, etc., it's different in terms of how it systemizes, how it speaks a certain language. And this goes in accordance with what language is spoken. You guys might actually know there's like 195 different countries in this world. And each part of each country, that means more than 200 languages. More than 200 languages are spoken because we have multi-languages in every country. Put that to robots, they don't have to be speaking English. You could literally have something that comes from China, as you guys have all known. I know you use the Lazadas and the Amazons and stuff, and you've gotten something that speaks to you, and it's like a watch or a phone or whatever it is, but it's in Chinese, right? You guys have all gotten that. We've all gotten that, right? You put on something and it's got the assistant. It's like saying all kinds of stuff like arigato and maizamas and blah, blah, blah. My car does that, funny enough. And that's the way it is. Why? Because again, English is not the only language. So in the same way, we could get a robot from China and it speaks Chinese and not English. So this is how the difference in programming and the language will be in the future. And a lot of movies have touched on this a bit, but they're all speaking English, aren't they? The funny thing about this, though, is when you look at something like, for example, is it The Creator? The movie Creator. You guys might want to check that out. It talks about a type of dystopia where the Chinese empire, so to speak, not Chinese, the Asia empire kind of comes together and the world kind of separates itself, divides itself between Asians and Europeans. And the rest of the world's destroyed, obviously, right? The Americanized and the China. And it's, Donald Trump pretty much talking on the pedestal. But again, he's speaking in English, right? So this is something important to understand because, again, the language and communication is how we speak with each other moment by moment. If I was to say that this is up the res and, you got to get your meal on and, get the vibe together, some of those words, but some of you won't. You'll be like, what is up the res? What is that? Is that a disease? What is that, right? But some of you would be like, yeah, I understand that. And this is exactly what can happen when it comes to robotics. So I spoke about this in another video where I talked about the mispronunciation of cut the apple while it's in your hand that you give to a robot can literally have a robot cutting the apple in your hand and cutting your hand. So I spoke about this in terms of mispronunciation or keeping out words that are needed, but it also goes in terms of other languages as well. If you're not able to speak another language or even signal the right way, right? Then it's easy to mispronounce what's going on. Some of these, like stop, don't work everywhere. You can go to different countries, and if you go like that to someone, they might high-five you. And you're like, stop, and they're just high-fiving you, going what are you doing, right? In their own language. So it's very easy in the exact same way to mispronounce this. So what that means for robots as well is the same type of problem. The miscommunications that can happen can also be in different languages, which are misinterpreted in different ways. Now, I could come up with jokes, but I would be swearing at you for a lot of this because there's different languages where things that are sexualized, they kind of mean different things in English. It's like a kiss means something else in another language. I won't talk about this. You guys can let me know in the comments if you've seen this joke by Russell Peters, right? But it's these kinds of things that can be misinterpreted, and even worse with the robots. So what's the way forward, right? We either come up with like an international language that everyone is speaking. Now, you guys might have seen this, by the way, with Espanol, speaking Spanish. A lot of people are starting to speak Spanish just as their like second language because it's cool and it's hip. But it's not just cool and hip. It's something for you guys to use that can be translated into many different languages, right? Filipino being a great example of that. Because, again, the Spanish colonized a very large population of people. So this can be interpreted and used in different ways. You guys feel me? So we need to either come up with an international language that works for everyone, or we need to pick and choose one that already exists that we can simplify everything with in the future. And again, a lot of this comes down to, dare I say it, the nukes and wars that we have in the future. You guys see that the stuff's still going on with Ukraine and Russia? Yeah, you could put it to other countries in the exact same way. And again, where this ends up, we don't know. But, you know, it might not be so long until we're speaking Chinese. You guys feel what I'm saying? Let me know in the comment section. Again, I don't like getting political now on this channel, but it's important to understand because, again, if we all need to speak Chinese, I mean, I'll be the first to learn. Catch you guys for the next one soon.